Hi, it's Gil at Close Call Sports. This is the 1 year anniversary of MLB's spring training getting cut short because of the pandemic. It's actually the 1 year anniversary, March 11th is, of WHO declaring this a pandemic. That's funny, I thought he was on first. I remember being in the press dining room down in Anaheim with our public address announcer eating dinner, seeing the news that the NBA had canceled their season or postponed it at the time, and thinking, we're not going to be back for a while. Still not back. But MLB decides to mark the occasion by announcing its experimental playing rules to be tested during the 2021 minor league season. And oh boy, this is fun. It's going to vary by level of play, and you can tell someone's overcompensating when they use in their press release, quote, consistent with the preference of our fans. They're trying to justify why they're doing it by saying the fans want it, yet Twitter is all abuzz about how fans do not want this. So, nice touch, MLB. But let's go over them and see what's going on. In AAA, there are larger bases, 15 inches square to 18 inches square to reduce collisions and injuries. This has been talked about for a while. If COVID didn't happen, they probably would have tried this a little bit more last year. So this is no surprise to really anyone. They were going to do it anyway. AA defensive positioning, this is the anti-shift rule. They were talking about that as well, so it's sort of a continuation, putting it into practice. High A is the step-off rule. This is directly from the Atlantic League, if I recall, back in 2019. Again, COVID 2020. But 2019, the Atlantic League tried this step-up. Pitchers have to disengage the rubber before throwing, or it's a balk, and we have videos on how that didn't work. Wait, do we? We do have videos on how the automated ball strike system didn't work. Pitch limitation, pitch timer, and ABS for low A. All low A leagues are going to the 2 step-off pickoffs per plate appearances rule, where there's one runner on base, which sort of is like, okay, so if I'm a runner, I'm trying to get the pitcher to step off or trying to pick me off twice. So the pitcher is now out of the ability to do that, which means my lead can be as big as it wants for the rest of the plate appearances. Am I reading that right? Let me know if I'm not. Low A Southeast and Low A West. Remember, they restructured this whole thing. I'll get to that in a second. The Low A Southeast is going with the automated ball strike system. That's the computer robo umpire. And I find it really actually hilarious that the stadiums that are probably the least equipped to technologically handle something like this are going to be the stadiums that are getting the electronic robot that doesn't work in the first place. We have videos from the Atlantic League. Read about it on our website. It's extensive. We'll see what happens when MLB tries to institute this. Low A West, in addition to the limitations on step-off pickoffs, the following successful pace of play rules tested amongst, it's a whole fancy way of saying we're going to do an on-field timer that are going to have new rules on it. We're going to do this. Again, you can tell MLB's overcompensating because in the press release, Michael Hill, MLB Senior Vice President of On-Field Operations, starts the quote by saying, quote, we are listening to our fans. Except that all the Twitter comments as a reply are fans saying, you're not listening to us, we don't want this. Speaking of things that people don't want, MLB contracted minor league baseball, so got rid of a lot of teams, which the trickle-down effect, of course, is that a lot of umpires are going to be out of a job. And if they haven't been communicated to from the minor league office by now, that's probably not good. So I anticipate that minor league baseball is communicating with its umpires saying you don't have work, but they're finding a very creative way of saying it to the umpires who are now out of a job due to the contraction. It's a very interesting time, I would say, and I have a feeling that this press release, all the changes that are going on, it's indicative of 2 things. Number one, MLB wants to control everything. They have this federal antitrust exemption that they operate at the major league level that they've been operating with for like 100 years by now. Not quite, but almost. And they're trying to apply that, I assume, to their minor league takeover. It's funny as a corollary because they've argued that the federal antitrust exemption is the reason that certain I'm not going to talk about Angel Hernandez. I'm not going to talk about Angel. But what I find really interesting is MLB, I think that this whole idea of splitting everything up division by division and level by level and saying, you're going to work on this, you're going to work on this, you're going to work on this, is very much a way for MLB to distract from what they're doing with minor league baseball to begin with. And number 2, this we want to have everything both ways approach that MLB seems to be really putting forth. I think it's going to be so confusing for players who are up and down players, going from double to triple A and then down back again and then here and there, and for umpires who might get promoted mid-season and have to learn this new rule and forget this old rule, and mostly for the step-off rule in high A and the defensive positioning rule for double A are really the two that I'm thinking of. But your mileage may vary. Anyway, welcome back to baseball, I guess, minor league umpires. And for those of you who still have a job, and for those of you who don't, I sure hope that they told you about it before they got rid of it. And I hope they were honest about it, too. We'll have much more discussion on this and all other things, but MLB celebrates the anniversary of COVID by announcing a whole bunch of rules that apparently, judging by the Twitter comments, the fans didn't want in the first place, even though MLB says in the press release that, yeah, the fans wanted it, except the fans themselves say, we didn't want this. Baseball! We'll see you on the site, closecallsports.com.